Hello, my friends. It's Matthew Street. Welcome to my channel. Can you imagine being in the greatest musical act of all time, the Beatles? They break up. And now you go on to a career, a solo career that spans 55 years and still going. Yes, folks, I'm talking about Paul McCartney. And through that solo career, within the first even few years of it, you have enough unreleased material sitting in the vaults that could compromise another great solo album. That's how great your songwriting is, your musicianship is. Your solo career is that outstanding that you can put stuff in a vault somewhere and the stuff can accumulate and accumulate to the point you have a full album of great material that goes unreleased. And that's only in the first 8 years of your career, 7 or 8 years of your solo career. Can you imagine 55 years on in your solo career, how much material sits in the vaults unreleased from Paul McCartney that could be released one day and be great material for him? It's just mind-boggling because, folks, there is a great lost Paul McCartney album from the first, like I said, 7 or 8 years or so of his solo career, from around 1971 till around 1978 or so, that goes unreleased, that is, in my opinion, a great, outstanding Paul McCartney solo album. And I'm going to tell you about that album right now. Here's how I discovered this album. Way back in the 1980s. Yes, the 1980s, before cell phones, before the internet, before online streaming, before, what else do we have now? Before AI and artificial intelligence. I don't know, did we even have pagers? Yeah, I think we might have had pagers in the 80s, maybe in the mid-80s, I don't remember. Did we have car phones? Maybe in the mid-80s, car phones started coming, these big, bulky things. Well, anyway, folks, you know, we didn't have a lot of the technology we have today. So certainly we didn't have the internet. So discovering new things by the Beatles or the solo Beatles or the music we loved was very hard, especially if you were, someone like me who, I might have been involved in one fanzine of the Beatles back then, and you had to order stuff through the mail, and it was a whole mess how to discover and get new things. It was like a big deal if you were somewhere in a store and found something new and special. Well, anyway, let me get back on track here. Of all places, I'm at a flea market in the mid to late 80s. I think it was around 1987. And I'm going through different vendors, looking for records. Back then, CDs were just coming out, but I wasn't into CDs around 1987 or so. That wasn't until about 88, 89. But anyway, I'm looking through for records and music in general, music memorabilia, anything I could find that was pretty cool. And I'm flipping through a rack with one of the vendors, and I see this. And I go, what? Paul McCartney. Macca brand cold cuts, no bologna on the club sandwich label. Now, I don't even know if I think it was later that I got involved in Paul McCartney's official club sandwich fan club, and I was getting the newsletters, the little newspaper newsletters and all that. So I don't even know if I knew what club sandwich was back in 87 or so. But I see this album in the vendor's rack at the flea market. Now, you're going to laugh at me now, but I still have the little price tag I kept for it. You're not going to see that. I get it. Well, if you can see, it says $15. There it goes. I think it's focused in. 15 something or 15 bucks. And I don't know why, folks, but back then, maybe I was a pauper. I don't know, newly married, whatever. I thought $15 was a little high to pay for this. I was like, $15, like, I know, I was probably going to some outlet store to get most of my vinyl for like $5.99 or something. Who knows, or maybe 10 at the most. But 15 seemed a little tad high. I don't know what I had for cash that day. But I said, you know what? It looks interesting. A lot of these songs I had never seen before. So I plunked down the money for it. And I'm going to have images up here too. But let me just show you my official copy. And it's on a red label. Cold Cuts on Club Sandwich. Black vinyl, And I said, all right, I'm going to plunk down the money. I'm going to get it because I don't know a lot of these songs. I don't think I knew any of them at the time. I really don't. So I plunked down the money and I picked this up, took it home, put it on, and I was blown away, folks. I was like, where? It has no information on where these, I didn't know if these were newer songs, if this was like a proposed Paul McCartney album that was coming around that time in the late 80s or so after Press to Play. Because like I said, this is around 87 or so, but before Flowers in the Dirt, I think when I picked this up. I was like, is this like someone getting secret tapes of Paul's next album or something? What is this? I had no clue at the time. Well, come to find out, folks, Maca brand, no baloney, Cold Cuts, what is one of the best known fan club only, we don't say the B word, BL word, leg word, fan club. It's one of the most beloved and greatest fan club only releases from Paul McCartney of all time. It's basically, and all you hardcore fans already know all this, I'm just doing this for some viewers who may not be familiar. It has some of the greatest unreleased Paul McCartney material from the 70s, from that period of 71 to 78. And in concept, this was supposed to be an official release from Paul McCartney and Wings. It really was. But it never happened. It went unissued. Now, my understanding is that Paul did build the nuts and bolts of this Cold Cuts album and put it together. Originally, it was going to be a 2-disc set called Hot Hits and Cold Cuts, which I believe would have been like, remember what Wings' Greatest became in 1978. I think that was going to be the Hot Hits part of it. And then the Cold Cuts was going to be stuff like this, like unreleased but cool material that had not gone issued yet. That's my original understanding. It was going to be a double-disc set, but it was shuffled around, and there were 3 different lineups of what the album was going to be, and all versions of the album were very strong. Whether they had the hits on it with the Cold Cuts and the unreleased stuff, it was all great stuff. It was just all fabulous material. But they came up with a final version around 1980, which was the 12 tracks, which I'll show you here, and here they are here, the 12 tracks of unreleased material. Around 1980, it was finalized. But what happened was, and again, this is, there could be more official word to this. Please help me if I'm off here. But my understanding is that because what happened to John, Cold Cuts was ready to go. But then what happened with John it shuffled everything around. I mean, it just messed up everything. Obviously, to this day, we're all messed up because of what happened with John. But the project was shelved around late 80, early 81 or so. It was just shelved. But Paul didn't let it die. From what I understand, in 1987, in the mid-80s or so, he did a little more production work on some of the material, which would be used later, like Same Time Next Year, and Mama's Little Girl showed up later in the late 80s early 90s on a 1990 single called Put It There, from the work Paul had done on them in 87, in the late 80s. Well, what I believe I have here is the 1980 version, before Paul tinkered with it a little more in 87 in the late 80s. This is the 1980 version of the album that was eventually shelved. Very rough. Many of the recordings on here are rough. They need to be mastered a bit more, maybe remixed or mixed a bit more and enhanced and whatnot, but they're pretty darn good. The sound quality is, I'll give it a B to B+. It's really, really good. And on this version, you have, I'll go through each track real quick. You have track 1 is A Love for You, which is from the Ram sessions. This is all stuff I learned afterwards. I had no idea at the time. Track 2, My Carnival, is from the Venus and Mars sessions, and it ended up being a B-side on Spies Like Us, excuse me, in 1985. Track 3, Waterspout, wonderful song. One of the best, greatest McCartney unreleased songs of all time, Waterspout, and it's from the London Town sessions. Then you have track 4, Mama's Little Girl, which was recorded in 1972, originally at the Red Rose Speedway sessions, and it's absolutely fabulous. And I think Mama's Little Girl also appeared on the Japanese Flowers in the Dirt and Put It There single as well. You know, I said earlier, Mama's Little Girl was on the official Put It There single, but it was also on the Japanese Flowers in the Dirt album, I believe, as a bonus track, but I could be wrong. Correct me on that one. Track 5 is Night Out. That's from 1972 sessions. Then you have track 6, ending side 1, Robber's Ball, which was from 1980. I'm assuming around the time Paul was recording McCartney 2. Let's go to side 2 now. Side 1, by the way, is a little over 24 minutes long. Side 2, which is 22 and a half minutes long, starts out with Cage, okay? Now, Cage is from 1978 from the Back to the Egg sessions, okay? Good little track, cool track. Track 2 on side, I'm going to call it track 7 was Cage, just the way I have it listed here. Track 8 is Did We Meet Somewhere Before? It's from 1977. It was originally going to be in the Heaven Can Wait Warren Beatty movie, but it was passed over on. Who would pass over a Paul McCartney song for a movie? But it was included, a clip of it, Did We Meet Somewhere Before, was included in the Ramones movie Rock and Roll High School as a brief clip, but it's not on the soundtrack album to Rock and Roll High School. Track 8, I believe, track 8 here, or no, track 9 is Hey Diddle, and that is from the Ram sessions. Track 10, Tragedy, is not a McCartney song, it's a cover of a Nelson and Birch song, and it's recorded during Red Rose Speedway, but it's a great, great track. And then you have track 11, which is a live track called Best Friend. It's from the Wings' 1972 European tour. It was recorded August of that year in Belgium, and it's an absolutely fabulous, fabulous song. Really rocking song, Best Friend. And then the final track, track 12, is Same Time Next Year. It's from a movie, or was supposed to be from a movie of the same name, and it was rejected. Again, who rejects a Paul song for their movie? But it was. But as I said earlier, it was worked on later by Paul. He did some more production work on it, and it did appear on the Put It There single from 1990. And I think it's also another one like Mama's Little Girl, which was on the Japanese Flowers in the Dirt as a bonus track, I think. Correct me if wrong or right on that. So, folks, the material on here is fabulous. That's the details of where it all came from. But at the time, in 1987, when I picked this album up, I had no idea. I just thought it was like somehow somebody in Paul's inner circle, grabbed the tapes, similar to the movie, Give My Regards to Broad Street. A close confidant had the tape box and ran out of the studio with it, and then recorded it real quick on, some crappy tape recorder, and then, sold it to somebody to make a quick buck and put it out there. I thought I was getting something like new from Paul that hadn't come out yet. And it is all unreleased material. And some of it, like I said, a handful of these tracks have trickled out over the years. But folks, it gets me excited to talk about this to you as a great lost Paul McCartney album, because I think at this point, these songs were only up until 78 or so. Paul's had a career that has spanned another 45 years since the material on this album. Can you imagine what is in the vaults? How many cold cuts are out there in the vaults that we could get one day? Think about it. I mean, sad to think of this, but the man is 83. Hell, I'm getting old. He's 83. Someday he's not going to be with us again. Could my children and my children's children and my children's children's children still be getting new Paul McCartney material going on to the next millennia? Who knows? It could happen. The man is prolific. He's written some of the greatest music of all time. And it looks to me like, you look at it, a great lost album like this, And you say, what else is in there? What else could be coming? The great lost Paul McCartney album, Cold Cuts. And they are hot. Hot as hell, man. Bye-bye.